Well, I'll get us started here. I just want to first let me introduce myself. I'm Billy Dawson. I'm the chair of the NPA Government Relations Committee, and on the call with us is the panel, I guess we'll call it, and Doug Praswell, who is the NPA Vice President and GRC Co-Chair, Fran Bishop, who is the NPA GRC Liaison, Sarah Jane Hughes, who is the NPA Legal Consultant, and Cliff Andrews, who is our who handles our DC lobbying effort. I do want to also thank the staff of the NPA. There's been a whole lot of work that went into this, and the collateral that we produced for this and for y'all. And I really want to thank them for all the efforts that they put into this. The reason for this call is the legislative conference that we had scheduled for September has once again been postponed. And since there are currently two bills in the Senate and one pending or coming up in the House that have to do with rate caps, we feel like it's important that we reach out to our legislative representation in DC and try to talk to them and introduce them to who we are and what we are about and what the effect of these bills is going to have on us. And Congress right now is in a recess that has already been preempted, but there is a span of time here or a window where we'll be able to contact them while they're at home. And what we want to do here is give you the tools and what you need to successfully contact them at home and accomplish what we want to accomplish. And we have a schedule. We'll try to keep this under an hour. There'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions. We want to try to keep them towards the end. And so what I would like to do right now is just start this off and introduce you to Cliff Andrews, our DC lobbyist, and he is going to update you on kind of where we are, where the legislative effort process is in all this, and also to give you some meeting instructions and kind of give you a framework for how to do this. Once we do that, we'll move on to what the supporting materials are and a little role play, and then we'll go into question and answers. With that, I'll turn it over to Cliff. Thanks, Cliff.
Well, thanks very much, Bill, and it's great to be here with you, the panelists, and so many of you on this webinar who I've known over the years. And it's great to see you. And now's the time, as Bill said, that we need sort of all hands on deck in your participation. So for those that are here, I'd say spread the word after today too. So Bill mentioned what's happened in DC. Saw many of you in Dallas, where we talked about. And really, it's all year we've been talking about. We've known that legislation was coming in the House and the Senate that would have 36% all-in rate caps. Took a little longer than we expected, but true to what we were being told, it did finally happen. The first bill dropped. It was S2349 in the Senate mid-July, and that's another all-in rate cap from Senator Durbin. And after later in July, we had Senator Reid introduce S2508, which is another all-in rate cap. We expect another bill that would be a companion to the Reid bill. This is a Military Lending Act style bill to be introduced in September in the House by Congressman Garcia. And so it's fair to say action's heating up. There was also a hearing in July after our Dallas conference in the Senate Banking Committee that was all about rate cap and the need for it. And I'm pleased to report from that hearing that Pawn came out unscathed. We were not the focus whatsoever. There was a brief mention in testimony, and that's not to say, oh well, gosh, everything's great. What it means is we have to keep up the education effort on the Hill. I've been told in the House that leadership there, quote, sees a window to move a rate cap legislation, end quote, this fall. They readily admit they're not sure how successful they'll be or not be, but the point is that there are efforts to move such a bill. Going back to what we stated to many of you who are on our webinar on this topic, or I would say our inaugural webinar about this topic earlier this year, I believe it was in February. You know, we noted that this was coming. However, we also noted the balance of power would make it tricky to just zip a bill through, but that the threat is sort of the highest that we've seen it in many, many years. And I can tell you that there's a lot of different constituencies in DC now that are working behind the scenes on this bill, both for it and against it, which means that it's easy for us potentially to get thrown under the bus by any number of groups as they're looking to save their own, their own livelihoods. So we've got to represent now, and so glad to be with you, today. So, Bill, if you'd like, should I jump into now sort of the process for getting engaged, the main topic about grassroots?
Yes, sure, Cliff. That'd be great. Thank you.
Great. All right. So on the grassroots side, and you'll have follow-up information here that's presented on a link that NPA has created. It's very informative. Bill noted that Congress has been home, or is home now, for a recess through mid-September. The Senate left last week. The House will come back next week because of an infrastructure vote. But bottom line is that really that between now and mid-September is a great opportunity when the members are home to reach out and introduce yourselves. If you've met them before in DC or elsewhere, reintroduce yourselves. If for some reason they can't meet with you in this 6 weeks, well, then stay on them and try to get to them when they can. But I'd really use this time to focus and set a little time aside. It's really not hard. We'll go over the protocols here, carve out some time after this call today and say, I'm going to spend 30 minutes on this to at least get the ball rolling. And the way you get the ball rolling, we've got some web links. There's a link for the House and for the Senate. For the House members link, and this will be on our website. It's very easy to enter in your full zip code, and it will tell you exactly who your member is. If you've got multiple stores or multiple homes in a given state or states, enter in all those zip codes and find out the range of members that you have. Likewise, in the Senate, there's a link, very easy to click on it, go to your state, and each state has 2 senators. It will tell you those senators. Once with that information and those links that you'll have, you can click on them and it will give you everything you need to know about contacting that office. I always recommend, if I would call their local district office or one of their offices. Sometimes they've got multiple offices. Pick the office that's closest to you by geography and call them and just simply state, you're a constituent, you wanted to request the opportunity to meet with a member and what the proper protocol is. Some of them will direct you or give you a specific email or a scheduler. Some of them will say, go to our website. There's actually a link on there how to schedule a meeting. Again, I would first call, no matter what. You may go on the website to schedule a meeting. My experience over the years is sometimes making that call, you find out there's a sort of a secondary way or a better way to get right to the decision makers versus going through the general gatekeeping link. So you might be directed there anyway. So just listen to what they tell you. Sometimes the district office might refer you back to DC and say you need to contact our scheduler in DC at this phone number or this email. So pretty straightforward, but find out the protocol. And then once you have who you need to speak to, or if there's an email link that they send you to, you very simply state that you're a pawnbroker. You'd appreciate the opportunity to introduce yourself, to explain the business and the constituents that you serve, the consumers you serve, and also to talk about a pending policy matter, federal rate cap legislation that would impact your business. And it could be 2 or 3 sentences, it doesn't need to be much. So in terms of timing, you'll want to give them a range of times that are good for you, but also be flexible for them. Some of them will accept meetings in person, particularly at the district level and the state level, more so than in DC right now. And some are following COVID protocols and won't have any in-person meetings, but will instead be accommodating to set up a conference call or a video conference. You'll also hear, and many of you I know this because you've done this before, sort of in DC and elsewhere, but oftentimes the member's not available. Don't take that personally. If they say, hey, you know, Congressman, Congresswoman is not available, you want to meet with Cliff, our legislative assistant, say, certainly, you'd welcome that opportunity, get to know the staff, and then they can be a venue to then later get you in to see the member. You might suggest to them also, they might ask where you want to meet. For those who are comfortable, I would encourage presenting the opportunity for a store tour. And otherwise, you say that you're more than willing to meet them at their district office. You know, make it easy for them if it's an in-person meeting. Obviously, video, that's a separate subject. So that's just the general gist of it. We have, again, the remarks I just presented, which I know are very intuitive and straightforward, laid out on our website. Once you do secure a meeting, we're going to go over some talking points later, and we'll have those follow-up materials. It's important after that meeting to follow up with a thank you note. And then we'll have a link that you can go to on the NPA website to let us know how the meeting went. It's important for us to know sort of what our footprint is with this grassroots call to action, who we're reaching, how many times, and then any feedback, right? If they positive or negative, hopefully positive, and also if there's any follow-up information they want, we'd like to know that so that we can help give it to you to give to them. It's important if they want information that we try to be a resource and that you try to be a resource to them. So that's hopefully it in a somewhat of a nutshell, Bill, and I'm going to pass it back to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Cliff. With that, we want to turn this over to Fran Bishop, our NPA legislative liaison, and she's going to go over the supporting materials that will be made available to you, and she has a little presentation. So with that, Fran, all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill and Cliff. We have, as Cliff said, we've been expecting to see a bill or bills, and the timing was right after Pawn Expo, actually, and for the first one that was filed by Senator Durbin. So we've been preparing. Of course, this is not the first rate cap issue that we have encountered. It's been over a number of years. They've have surfaced, and we've successfully, along with other fun, they just didn't go anywhere. I'll just put it that way. They ended up in committee or what have you. They were left hanging out there on the shelf. So here we go again. All right, as you know, we've always provided you with talking points and suggestive things to discuss with your members of Congress, just like Cliff went over. But this time we've prepared in a trifold format. This is a front and back that you can have printed out. You can have it, take it to Kinko's or whoever that is if you don't have a color printer. And we'll just briefly, I'll just go out over a few of the panels, because you can fold this up and put it in an envelope. Of course, snail mail to Washington, D.C. is not advisable at all. It'll end up in goodness knows where. So the truth about pawn shops, because there's, a lack of understanding in many areas. So briefly, the first panel on the left here is a rundown of a few bullet points of how a 36% rate cap will hurt pawnbrokers and will hurt our consumer customers. And so we go down and state that we just won't be able to afford to offer non-recourse pawn transactions under that 36% all-in requirement. And the difference between us and the online lenders and the ones that are all credit-based and so forth is pawn transactions. We're face-to-face, we're brick and mortar, we're across the counter from them. We're not online and we're not credit-based. So we point that out, here's the differences. no bank or credit union makes these small dollar products available to consumers. And as you know, our average amount of pawn transactions varies across the country, but it's small dollar by comparison to other like banks or credit unions, or even Payday, or the online lenders and so forth. And some of the reasons why, why do people pawn things? Why would anybody want to pawn something? I've been asked that before. And well, things happen. Life happens to people. And so it could be, they need car repairs, they've had a flat tire, they got to get it fixed so they can get to work and finish out the week and get the check on Friday. So they need $50, or they need, $100 or whatever. Maybe their child is sick and they need to take them to the doctor, or they need to get medicine for them. Child care, utilities, I got messed up and I got behind in my rent, or in my power, my electric bill and what have you. And, people pawn something to get the money to keep their lights on, because it's a whole lot cheaper to do that than it is to pay reconnect fees and all that stuff with the utility company. And it's just emergencies. Like I said, life happens. So we kind of go down a few things there. Next is how we are such a safety net of source of funds to millions of American, our consumers across the country. And the fact that we are highly regulated, it's safety net funds. They're face-to-face. We're Main Street, we're brick and mortar. We're not, online in that sense of the word. It's not credit-based. We took and used a figure of less than $180 for an average pawn loan. Like I said, a pawn transaction rather. And like I said, it's across the country. It varies. Yours may be higher, it may be lower, but we all know that have been behind the counter on a daily basis. You make a whole lot of loans that are $50 or less for whatever the reason is. And then there are studies from FDIC and other government agencies that how many millions of people, 40% in a government study of 40% of Americans don't have sufficient savings, or, in the cookie jar or whatever, to cover a $400 emergency, something that comes up. So, and, once again, other online lenders and so forth, they don't make the small dollar loans like we do. And we're part of the community. We're local. I don't care if you have 5 stores and they're in 5 different towns. You have people that work in those stores for you. They are local people most of the time, or you have employees that are local, and their families are being supported by that store as well. So you're vested in the community. You invest in the community. You work with community groups. All the time. Every time you turn around, it's some child's little league team needs a sponsor, or the school, they're selling donuts, or it's something all the time. So, and we're in the community, we're part of it. And the big thing that sets us apart, well, there's a lot of things that set us apart, but the fact that we're non-recourse, there's no harm, no foul to the consumer. They come in, they bring their TV or whatever in, they do a pawn transaction, and if they choose of their own volition that they're not going to come back and get it, they're going to do something else instead, you don't collect from them. You don't call them up. You don't, they don't get a collection letter from you. There's no impact on their credit rating on the front end or back end. There is no cycle of debt and involved in a pawn transaction. So Mark, will you go to the next slide? This is the back of the trifold. We're regulated. We go down that. We've preached it over the years about all of the ways that we are regulated on a state and local basis, and that's what we comply with. And we're licensed locally, examined, regulated, and so forth. Also, we threw in there about the federal statutes and regulations that we must abide by. And once again, most Most pawnbrokers are in one state. And some aren't. If that works for you, expand on it when you're talking to them. If it doesn't, explain it. You know, well, I've got 2 over here and one across the state line here. It's not complicated. You know your business. You can tell it better than anybody else. In the middle section here, you'll see there's no complaints about pawn. We've been monitoring this for years. We have had no reports from Congress that they have a complaint, or complaints rather, plural, on pawn. I know from years and years and years in Alabama, we would have our annual meeting and we'd have our banking department regulator come, and he would get up there and the first thing out of his mouth is, I don't get any complaints on y'all. So let's just talk about what's going on. We have no complaints on pawn. Hopefully, you know, we work hard to maintain, to get to that level and maintain that level. So the complaint portion of this also, as far as like with the CFPB, they have this elaborate complaint portal on their website, and it's very difficult to monitor, but we do. And Professor Hughes goes through it with a fine-tooth comb, and we find very few, like slim to none, let's say, of complaints about pawn transactions, and it is never, and we have not found any that has to do with interest rates or fees. So it's like, I got my TV back and the screen was scratched. You know, it's that kind of thing, and it's not much of that, because we all know we have to take care of our customers' property while it's in our possession. Another thing that is very important is that the CFPB stated back in 2017, when they were going over this so-called small dollar rule, when they were getting ready to issue that, which was about payday and titles and some other types of lending, they specifically exempted pawn from being covered by that small dollar rule. And they went into detail about why. There were about 9 or 10 industries that were exempted. We were one of them, and glad of it. So there's that. And you can get in touch with me later if you want, you know, the specific link to the Federal Register, which is like hundreds of pages, but take it from us, it's there. And the last thing is we kind of tried to throw in here a little bit of math. Fuzzy math? No, just plain black and white. Pardon? Plain black and white math here of what a 36% cap on lending would be. You take that average $180 transaction and you apply the 36% to it, you're going to get $5.40 back. Now, what all are you going to pay with that? Not much. And, you know, so you're in a deficit. If you make a loan based on that, and all loans have to be made based on that, it's not going to take long for that to, for you to be in the hole. You're in the hole when you write the pawn transaction. So we kind of go down several bullets there and put it in a nice package to where, you know, you can have it printed out, you can print it out yourself, and so forth. So, and that coincides with the toolkit that's on the NPA website that Cliff talked about earlier, of where you can figure out who your senators and representatives and so forth are. So with that, I will say I've had a couple of people already being proactive, and I'll say, we've all heard the saying, you know, be like Bob, the little cartoon thing. Well, be like Bob McCullough. He already has a meeting set with his representative, his member of Congress, who is bringing another member of Congress from another state. So, you know, he's proactively out there. I've heard from one of my Ohio friends, and he's already preparing his letter to Senator Sherrod Brown, who's the chair of the Senate Banking Committee. So let's all roll up our sleeves and get in there. Get in touch with us if we can help you. Bill?
Thank you, Fran. Now we're going to move over to this little role-playing exercise, and Just a reminder, I've had a few questions pop up on the screen, and we will try to answer questions toward the end. If you have questions, please feel free to enter them and post them on the message board, and we will try to get to those, like I said, at the end. So with that, we'll turn it over to Cliff and Doug, and we'll do a little role play. It's a scene from what you might see on a typical meeting with a member of your congressional delegation. So Cliff and Doug.
Yeah. Before that, I'll just make some overall remarks about your meeting flow and things. We talked about the sort of the points, the way you might set up a meeting. And I just said, when you go into the meetings, I think it's important, just be yourself. You know your business better than they do. If you don't know an answer, you can get back to them or have us get back to them, and stay generally on message. I think resist to get into political talk. If it's your party or not, I just stay away from that. I would also resist don't talk about fundraising, and don't talk about other industries in a negative way. We shine on our own by saying who we are. So I just want to make those overall remarks. And you, again, you're your best advocate. So with that, I am going to attempt to be a congressman and meeting with Douglas Braswell.
Let's go with Senator Andrews. I like the sound of that.
I've moved up. Well, I'll take that. Well, thank you, Douglas. Well, so with that, expect most of the meetings to be, to be friendly. And I also want to note at the outset, for those listening, this is a serious call to action. But no, I believe we're at a good point, knocking on wood here, where we're not under attack. So going into these meetings confident, sort of explaining who we are in a positive tone, not in a, oh, we're out to get me. Oh, what's your problem, Congressperson? Not that anyone would do that, but just know that I know there's a lot of anxiety amongst all of us for good reasons, but know that we're taking good steps forward. And the next big step forward is you all participating today in meetings. So enough of that. I'm going to jump in. I'm now a senator, meeting with my constituent, Douglas. So there's my earpiece. All right. Good afternoon, Douglas. Thanks for coming to see me today. Appreciate you making some time here. So I hear you're a pawnbroker. I can honestly say I've never been in a store, and I've seen a lot of TV shows. I guess you guys buy a lot of used things from people. Tell me about yourself.
Yes, Senator Andrews, I'd love to have you in the store sometime when you're at home. And it's kind of a bit of a common misconception that pawn shops primarily buy. I think maybe from Pawn Stars, the TV show that you've seen, but primarily what we do is provide small dollar short-term loans. So $180 or less, non-recourse, where people use the proceeds to pay emergencies, like they get a flat tire and they've got to get their tire replaced, or it's the middle of summer and their utility bills were much higher than expected, or medicine for the kids, those kind of things. And more often than not, people come back and pick the stuff up. So it's really it's the kind of loan that nobody else is making for small dollars with no credit checks and recourse and that kind of thing.
Yeah, can you explain? I heard you say non-recourse. I don't know what that means.
Sure.
What is it about credit, or what is that?
Yeah, well, really what non-recourse means is if you come to me and get a pawn loan and you don't ever come back, or you don't ever make any payments, then we're okay with that. We're not checking your credit. We're not putting a bad mark on your credit. We're not trying to hunt you down or pursue you through any legal means. It's basically that you have an opportunity to come back and get your item if you want, but if you don't, then that's okay. So we keep you from getting stuck into what I know you hear a lot, this debt trap. Pawn customers don't get stuck in a debt trap. They can leave whenever they want.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, you have the item. That makes complete sense.
Well,
So are you all, I mean, are you all are state regulated? I mean, how do you have federal laws? I guess it's mainly state regulated.
yeah, each state licenses pawnbrokers, and there are specific guidelines that pawnbrokers in different states have to follow. In addition, there's more than a dozen federal guidelines that we have to follow. We check our customers against the terrorist watch list. We check to make sure that if we have active duty military, that they get special rates and that we take care of them. So there's truth in lending, all kinds of federal requirements that we have to follow. It's kind of funny because we're a small bricks and mortar business. With a lot of these kind of regulations, we get lumped in with banks and other kind of online people where they're doing millions of, maybe high dollar transactions. But for our average of $180, we have a lot of federal guidelines that we have to follow, not to mention the locals guidelines they have to follow, where we report everything to local law enforcement and that kind of thing.
Do you get a lot of stolen property or what?
No, I think that one of the great things about the pawn industry, of course, by reputation, historically, I think that's been something that people have thrown around about us, but we do so much reporting. So, I upload every day all of the transactions that have occurred the previous day with IDs and everything else. And as a result, there's very little stolen merchandise that comes through our stores because we have to report. I guess there's just easier places to get rid of stolen property than places where you have to show your ID and report it to law enforcement.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, what with your customers, are there a lot of complaints, or is there any? Tell me about the loans. So they come in the store. What's typically the type of an item they might bring into? I mean, is this like car title? What do they bring to you, and how do you evaluate what's
yeah?
And
So
through the process quickly.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Senator. A pawn is means that you're bringing something in. You have to be able to pick it up and carry it in. We get a lot of jewelry. It depends on different parts of the country and even different parts of town. Their customers have different types of collateral, but they have to bring it in. So we're not loaning on titles to things that we don't see. We're loaning on iPads and gold chains and rings and televisions. Really the kind of thing that our customers might have laying around the house, and they're in a pinch and they can pick it up and run down and see us and do this face-to-face transaction quickly. They get the money that they need to take care of whatever their bill is.
All right. Well, that's real helpful. I need to come into a store sometime and check it out. You kind of open my eyes to all that goes on. Well, I mean, with all that said, I mean, I appreciate you coming in today. Congress and the Senate, we're always passing laws and looking to regulate. And is there something that's top of mind for you? What are you guys concerned about that's going on now in the Senate or in the House?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. Really the primary reason, besides just to get to know you and tell you a little bit about our business, is that there are a couple of bills in the Senate and one in the House that want to put a rate cap on how much businesses like ours can charge, and so that's really the concern that we have. But you hear numbers tossed around about 36% APR and that kind of thing. And for me, with an average transaction of $180, that means I can charge someone $5.40 a month, which we have just like everybody else. We try to pay our employees well. We want to have health insurance benefits. And we have utility bills and large footprints where we store everything in the back of the house. And it's just not possible for a pawnbroker to make a living and stay in business at 36%. Now, if my average transaction was $180,000 and I was doing a bunch of those every day, then maybe 36% makes sense. But at $180, I can't barely, pay for the person's time to do the transaction at $5.40. So that's the concern that I have today.
Yeah, I think that's an important point you just made. I've met with a lot of people, and really the first I'm hearing from from your business is that $180. There's a lot of people saying that this rate caps work for mortgages and credit cards and other types of loans, but it seems to me there's a big difference, and that's something that you need to underscore because it's in my book kind of apples and oranges type products, but I guess some members are looking to do a one size fits all, and sounds like that'd be hard for you guys.
Sure. Well, we have, pawnbrokers in the US do millions of transactions every day like this. And I think that largely our customer base is overlooked and forgotten. And sometimes, in an effort to do good, there's collateral damage. And I definitely think that a 36% rate cap, the collateral damage would be to put out, 10,000 plus pawn shops in the country, put them out of business.
Yeah, well, we can't have that. That'd be devastating and all on our communities and all of our employees, the employees that you have. Well, listen, I definitely will make a point to keep an eye on that legislation. I'll tell my staff to keep an eye on it too, and really would invite you to as things progress, keep me informed. I have lots of issues that I have to monitor and watch. And this is one I want to add to that list. So please keep in touch with me. I'll refer you my staff's name, and maybe I can get into a store over the holiday break or next January sometime.
Yeah, you bet. I'll reach out to your staff and see if we can't schedule some time for you to come in and see what we're all about.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Andrews. Good luck with your reelection.
All right. I was holding back there. I think we both were. We could have said some other fun things, but hopefully that was good. We'll turn it back over to you, Bill. Well,
all right. Well, thank you, guys. I think you did a great job with that. I think the keys here when watching this is to bring it down to a personal level. And what I've done in my opportunity to do this is I always kind of have a story to tell when I'm in there, and that's about somebody that I've helped out of a situation where they'd have their power cut off or something like that. And I use an actual story of something that happened in one of our stores. I see a lot of questions up there, and maybe I will turn this over to Cliff or Fran. Is it safe for the pawnbroker to bring up the rate cap or wait for the member to say something?
Well, I think it's a good question. I think one of the primary things we need to do is address this issue head on. So I'd first start out with the background about the industry. They may bring it up in your meeting request, as I noted earlier. I think you want to acknowledge that that's a policy issue. They like to know what policy issue you may talk about. So they may jump into it. So I'd let it sort of be organic. As you saw in our mock meeting, I brought it up and said, well, surely there must be an issue that you care about or policy you ask. So if they don't bring it up first and you're done sort of giving background, that's when I think you'd want to bring it up.
Okay, thanks, Cliff. I'm scanning through some of these questions we tried to answer.
Bill, let me take the one about the $5.40 example.
Okay, great. Thank you, Fran. Great.
In the flyer, we in the trifold rather, we've done many a revision of this math thing, here. And we got way into the weeds, and the column went on and on and on. And we just had to, we have heretofore always stayed away from cost and things like how much does it cost to make a pawn loan, because everybody's different. Every situation, every store, you know, but we know bottom line that a 30-day loan on $180 is going to bring $5.40. And that's not going to keep the doors open. So if you are in a state like in the Northeast or wherever you are, take that number and recreate it to your specific situation, to what the law in your state or your area, your regional area, or whatever is. We just had to put something simple in there because we kept getting in the weeds, and we getting tangled up in the reasons and the why and the what ifs and all that. And that was just totally muddy water. So we came back down to just keep it simple, the KISS method, and keep it simple, keep it clean. So with that, we maintained the 180 average transaction figure throughout the trifold and in other writings and documents and all that we will do. And the 36% based on the 180, we just try to keep it down to the basics. And you need to take it and translate it into what your specific situation is in your state. Is that clear as mud, Bill?
I think it's clearer then. Thank you, Fran.
Okay.
I have another question here, and maybe I think this will be good for Cliff. And if I sense hostility in the meeting, what would be a good way to turn that around?
Yeah, I saw that one, and that's a phenomenal question. And you'll notice while I wasn't hostile to Douglas at one point when we were talking about, he had a very calm way of talking about the issues and talking about the policy for rate cap, that we understand we want to protect consumers and blah, 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 but kind of explain the hard reality of it. So that was a little tangent, but it depends on what it's hostile about. I think that's why setting the stage very carefully, I had some ground rules at the outset, not to talk politics. We're not attacking bill sponsors. I think it's very important for those on this phone call, on this webinar, to know we are in active discussions with bill sponsors and are having, I will say, positive dialogues. That's all I'm going to say. We know and knew for a fact, and we're told that when the bills were introduced, there would be no exemptions. That doesn't mean they hate pawn or are attacking pawn. That doesn't mean that maybe at some point they won't. But so I'm tangenting a little bit here, but I'm letting y'all know what's great about this is we have an opportunity to go in very calmly in level-headed manner, explain who we are. If you're meeting with a Democratic office, or Republican office, it's always good just to be very neutral in explaining who you are. Sometimes if it's certain offices, you might say the policy is well-intended, and I use that because I do think it's well-intended to go after perhaps certain types of loans. We don't get into industries, as I said, but I think if it's most of your meetings aren't going to be contentious. I think you have to acknowledge, not get defensive. It's just like anything. You get with an upset customer, you say, I appreciate you sharing that with me. Try to handle the objection, the concern. And just say, maybe I'll be able to follow up. I appreciate your point of view, and here's how I experience it in my business, but I understand what you're saying. There's just some different ways, I think, to try to diffuse it and explain and make them see. But you might run into someone that no matter what you tell them, the $4.50 or the $5.40 is still too much money, or somehow they can't, in their minds, when you talk about rate cap, understand the difference. I think to the extent that there would be adversity, it would be someone who thinks that anything is grossly predatory. But that's why I think calmly explaining, as Douglas did, hey, maybe for the $180,000 loan, that makes sense. But for our short-term loan, that's $180, there's absolutely no way. It's an apples and oranges. And if you just kind of present it real matter of fact like that, a lot of people get that and will say, oh, okay. So I don't know if that answers that question, but those are some thoughts. And in all my years of doing this, I probably had about 5 meetings that were literally like super, super intense out of the hundreds and hundreds of them. So I would say generally they will go well. So.
Well, and we're not going to ever, I mean, we're never going to, we're not going to change every single person's mind here. And some people are just, it's just the way it is. I'm still, there's a few comments on here. I think they're good ones. And if you've made a comment, we certainly will take a look at those and do our very best to drill those down. And if it's something that we can use or we can put in our arsenal, we certainly want to do that. And I appreciate the feedback. I would like to just say, and I'll kind of get to a closing here. We're running close to our time. If any questions come up between now and then, I'll be glad to address them. But I think that it's very important that we all understand that we've got to get out there and do this. We've got to get out there and let our representation know who we are and what we're about. We're so misunderstood, and it's an opportunity for us to let people know who we are and what we do. And if you've got questions after this, and I'm sure a lot of you will, please contact the association and they'll direct you in the area that you need to go to better help you do this. If you're not a member of the NPA, joining the NPA is essential. Support of this organization is support of all these things. And it seems like that the NPA membership starts to go up when things like this come around, but we need to try to keep this organization viable and strong, because that's important for our representation. There is I hope to see a lot of you guys down at the Dixie Convention. Cliff Andrews is going to be the keynote speaker for that, and he'll have more to tell there, and there'll be a lot of people to talk to about this. Tomorrow, you should receive an email that'll have the tools that you need to follow up with this. You might see that there is a QR code up there on the screen. You can scan that, and that gives you the activism page. But the email that you'll get should have your access to that activation link, and also the toolkit, and a link to a link so you can report back once you've made the extension, or once you've reached out or you've been able to meet with your legislator, that you can report back and give us feedback. And that's very important too. But what's really important is that we don't rest on our laurels. Okay, we've had the webinar. I hope that we've convinced you that it's important to reach out to them, and you may be excited about it and ready to get on the horn and start making these appointments, but it's going to cool down tomorrow. If you don't keep it a priority, it may be harder to pick up that telephone. So we are going to be following up with emails to remind you of the importance of this. And I mean, I know how the math works, and I don't know how we'd stay in business with a 36% rate cap. And forgive me, I see some questions maybe popping up here.
Bill, let me add something.
Sure, Fran.
Yeah. If you have a specific question, if there's something that we didn't get to, we will go back over these and look at them. But there is an email address that comes directly to me, and that is grc@nationalpawnbrokers.org. grc@nationalpawnbrokers.org. And that comes directly to me, and I share it with the team GRC. If I don't have the answer, I'll go dig one up and get it to you. So just don't hesitate. If you don't want to put it out on the member forum or whatever, if you think it's something that's maybe technical or maybe a little private or whatever, send me an email, and we'll get you the answer.
Absolutely. I mean, we want to answer questions and give you all the tools that you need. Now, if you contact your senator's office or your congressperson's office, and one of the questions on here is about, is it better to meet in person or on video or by phone? In person is the best way. But I know that I had an opportunity to meet with the staff from my senator recently, and they wanted to do it by phone. They were still in DC, and I went ahead and took the opportunity to do that. And I've met with a staffer that way. And sometimes you won't get the senator, especially a senator. Sometimes you won't get a congressperson, but you'll get somebody to talk to. A lot of times that staffer may even actually have a better understanding of who we are and what we do and can portray that, because especially a senator and congressman, they've got a lot of things going on. And, getting the right staffer to carry your weight on this is not a bad idea. I also would say, Fran,
Yeah.
do you see anything on there else that you think that we need to?
I saw a question about what is the length of a average length of a pawn transaction. I think we, in the recent survey, Douglas, help me here, the industry survey, didn't we end up settling somewhere between 70 and 90 days? Something in that neighborhood?
Correct. I want to say it was 78, but I could be wrong about that. But the average pawn transaction, the duration is between 70 and 90 days.
Yes. I see another one about mentioning the public's and police support. I think that's very important in the, especially the police part of it, when you're talking about the very minute amount of stolen merchandise that comes through pawn, and the way you work hand in glove, hopefully, with law enforcement. I know there can be a hiccup every now and then, but in general. And I think that's important. And also your local, your chamber of commerce, your city and county government, that is important. All politics are local, everybody. Don't forget that. It's all politics are local. Sometimes that city councilman ends up being a state representative, and sometimes that state representative then ends up going on to be your member of Congress in the House of Representatives. And then as it goes on, he may end up being the senator. So don't ever ignore all politics are local, because that's how it goes.
Right, absolutely.
And I'll just add a quick closing remark. Agree with all that. Just thinking, about Bill's, sort of call to action there. And I said at the outset, carve out 30 minutes. Most of you are going to have 2 senators and one member of the House. And in 30 minutes, you should be able to make those phone calls, get on their websites, and at least get the ball rolling with a meeting request. If you don't, and one thing I didn't mention earlier, just like anything, you want to set a little ticker file. They're busy as can be. Don't get mad if they don't respond to you immediately. Maybe wait 5-6 days, send them another email or another phone call. And generally they will get back to you. And then importantly, he noted this, the QR code there. I said it earlier, after your meetings, we'd be grateful to get any insights, because we need to hear positives, negatives, and just what happened. Would be grateful for us to know that background. So thank you.
Okay. Well, listen, I think that we've kind of wrapped most of these things, and we've hit most of the high points, and I don't want to get into this lasting a long time with a lot of little questions. And I kind of, our goal was to keep this under an hour, and I'm tickled pink that we can keep it to 55 minutes. So let's do it there. But please, 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 if you have questions, contact us. Email Fran, call the office. And also, Christian Williams is on the call too. I didn't introduce her before, but she is our executive director, and to be congratulated with her and her staff that put this together, the flyer that we've done, the trifold, and the content of this. It was a whole lot larger undertaking than I ever thought it was going to be, and I really appreciate their help in this, and also the panelists on here, Fran and Sarah Jane and Cliff. They've been highly involved in this, and they make this, and I really appreciate that from all of you. With that, I'll sign off. Good night, everybody, and good hunting.
Good hunting, yeah.
Thank you.